Hello and welcome back to the Stacey West channel and to another preview. Yes, we've had the joys of financial accounts this week. If you haven't seen the podcast / YouTube video that has gone out on that, please make sure to check it out. It's a really, really interesting one. But we're going away from the numbers and all of the off-the-field discussion of the model to now talk about on-the-field stuff, if you like, and actually be talking about one of the teams who potentially have one of the best models in terms of the recruitment strategy in this league. Now, I'm not going to be talking about Peterborough United all by myself. No, I am joined by Kelan Sarson. How are we doing, Kelan?
Very good, mate. You?
I am really, really well. Now, Kelan is a co-host on the Real EFL podcast and also writes for the Real EFL site as well as others as well. And we've done podcasts obviously on there before, haven't we, Kelan? And we're obviously in different sort of group chats and Discord groups and such now. And I get a little bit bored because every single weekend it is just constant from Kelan banging on about another Peterborough victory. It's obviously going all right for you at this point of the season, especially, Kelan. Why don't you kind of talk us through the season as a whole?
Yeah, I think, before a ball was kicked this season, we lost a lot of players in the summer, a lot of it experienced players or players that had been there for a while. And it was billed as a bit of a transition season, a bit of a season where you give the younger talents a go. Mm-hmm. And it started relatively well, but I think it's been ever since. Weirdly, we lost 3 games at the end of August, and then since then we've lost 1 game away at Wigan, and we just at the moment have that knack of picking up wins. I don't think a lot of the wins recently have been that exciting or that we're not bulldozing teams, but we just have that knack of picking up wins at the moment, and it's just great to watch because I don't think any Posh fan really expected us to be in the automatic promotion spots. I think a lot of people looking in always expect Posh to be in and around the promotion spots. But I think even our chairman, who loves waxing lyrical at the best of times, was quite underwhelming with how he thought the season was going to go. And so to be where we are now at the moment, within breathing distance of the top of the league is unbelievable.
Absolutely. And it has been, especially in sort of recent games, an incredible run that you're on. And I've got to be honest, actually, at the start of the season, in our predictions here on the Stacey West, I actually predicted you guys to kind of be the whatever the term for the opposite of dark horses is, the sort of surprise disappointment of the season, because it was quite a big transfer window in the summer, and I thought at that point, because it was July that we made these predictions before a ball was kicked, that you'd maybe lose a couple more players that you've actually managed to keep hold on. Ronnie Edwards, for example, in that, a player who I very highly rate. I think we spoke about him on the last preview we did. But actually, you've very much proved me wrong. I think one of the, from the outside looking in particularly, and if I just look at sort of the base stats, something that really seems to be setting you apart from not just the other teams in and around you, but the rest of the whole division, is your goal scoring ability. Now, I don't know whether you have somehow managed to particularly score 2 goals in every single match, but it seems like every time I look at this table and I have a look at matches played and goals for, you are always averaging 2 goals a game. Because the last time I looked at this was 2 match days ago when I was doing a Real EFL podcast, and it lined up perfectly to 2 goals a game. It's lined up perfectly again now. So the goal scoring ability, what is it that's making you bag so many goals in this league?
I think weirdly, dropping, I know it sounds a bit mental, but dropping Johnson Clark-Harris and not having, that over-reliant focal point in the team has really helped us out and spread the goals out. And I think it's the way we play now with Ricky J. Jones as the lone striker. He's a lot more pacier than Clark-Harris. And it just suits our style of play a lot more. And I think with Kwame Poku and Ephraim Mason-Clark, a lot of League One defences at the moment are finding it quite hard to contain them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just, we just have, I mean, Fergie teams over the years, in many spells he's been here, we've always been known as we'll probably score more goals than you sort of team. And I think it does set us apart because, when you look at our promotion rivals or automatic promotion rivals in Derby County have fired blanks recently. And it does feel like even when we go behind in games or we're not playing at our strongest, there's a goal in the team from somewhere. And I mean, even when we beat Shrewsbury 2-1, Josh Knight bags a goal in that game, who's been fantastic recently. So everyone's stepping up. And I think when we got promoted from the division last time, it was, Johnson Clark-Harris was the star man or the talisman. And now really it's a real team effort and everyone's chipping in.
Now, before we were doing this preview, I made sure to brush up on some of my stats in regards to Peterborough and make sure to watch kind of a few clips as well. And I do that often, not just to kind of give myself a sense of what the opposition is going to be like, but also to kind of give me a little bit of optimism by looking at some weaknesses. But it's quite difficult to find some of them at the minute with Peterborough, the way that you guys are playing. So I guess on the flip side of, obviously, goal scoring and such has been a real positive for you guys recently, and you're able to pick up points on a consistent basis. What is it, unbeaten in the league now since the start of November, or just 7th of November, I think was the last time you lost a league match. What's been your downfall in some of the games? Or some of the games where, even if you've got the results, for example, the performances haven't necessarily been there. Is there any kind of particular weakness in that? Is there anything that Lincoln may try to, or maybe should try to exploit?
I think a problem area for us this season arguably could be our goalkeeper, because we've had to bring in Jed Steer, who's been really good since coming in, but there's maybe not been that settled number one. And I think in a lot of the wins that we picked up against Charlton and Shrewsbury, we dominate the ball for large games. But I think one of our weaknesses, we do allow teams into games when we should be maybe killing them off. I know we talked about the fact that we're quite potent, but I think Darren Ferguson touched upon it yesterday. We beat Crawley Town in the EFL Trophy 2-1. But we had so many chances in that game where it could have been maybe 3 or 4-1. So I don't know if there's maybe a weakness in the fact that we sometimes find it hard to kill games off. I know that sounds strange, that we're the top scorers in the league, but it could be a potential weakness Lincoln could play into.
Well, hopefully that's something that we can try to do. Let's also pick up then on one of the players who we know his goal scoring ability in this league, but you've already mentioned that actually dropping him has helped. Johnson Clark-Harris. Now, first of all, explain to everybody the situation in regards to his transfer status, if you like, at the club. And then, is there any chance that we may see him on Saturday?
I think when you look at his transfer status at the moment, obviously there was big talk about him going to Charlton. I think the rumour or what had been reported is he was probably asking for too high of a wage. And I think Charlton now have moved on. They've signed Freddie Ladapo, and obviously Michael Appleton's now gone from Charlton. So I don't know if that deal really works now at the Valley. And I don't know, it's for Clark-Harris. If you're in your Clark-Harris's shoes, he's an ageing striker. He's obviously been wanted by clubs before, so he's probably not in a rush to go. And at this point in time, I think we're all resigned to the fact that if he goes on a free transfer in the summer, he goes on a free transfer in the summer. There's no real harm in having a striker that knows how to find the back of the net without real hesitation in your ranks. So I think we saw it against Barnsley when he was given a rare start. He scored twice. So it's one of those where there's no harm in it, really. I do think there's a bit of irritation at the club that he's not just moved on to get him off the books. But to answer your second question about whether or not he'll feature at Lincoln, I'm not too sure he will, because we've got other strikers that Fergie is giving more time to, such as Malik Mothersill, who we got in the summer, who's had a lot of injury issues, a young striker who seems to be preferred over Clark-Harris at the moment. And Ricky J. Jones, he might not be as prolific as Clark-Harris or as deadly in front of goal, but he certainly helps the team more as a quicker option. So I can't see Clark Harris featuring whatsoever at Central Bank on Saturday.
I'd say that would be a positive, but obviously it's not like the rest of your attacking line is struggling to find the goals, like you say, and the fact that you're able to spread it around, it shows that you're creating some really good opportunities for a lot of the players in and around it, even though, like you say, there's maybe a slight weakness in terms of putting some of those chances away. Now, speaking of strikers, it's something a lot of Lincoln fans want to talk about at the minute, because we've actually got some. And the one I'm gonna pick up on is a name who will be very familiar to you in Joe Taylor. Obviously, Joe Taylor was at Peterborough for, 2 seasons or probably 1 full season, I believe. Yeah. Was it January to January, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, and he played 12 matches for you, all substitute appearances in the league. Those stats are with 141 minutes played, I believe. Now, talk to me about Joe Taylor and what you saw from Joe Taylor, and why, was him moving to Luton the right move for all parties, or would you have maybe preferred to have him develop at Peterborough at the time? Or, explain to us a Peterborough fan's relationship with Joe Taylor.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a perplexing one, because I think we signed him from non-league, and obviously Posh have such a reputation of signing a non-league striker and striking gold with that sort of, that transfer approach. But he came in and we never really gave him a go. Obviously, Clark Harris at the time was firing in the goals, and we probably had other options that were more used to the demands of EFL football than Taylor, and it didn't really work out for him. I think when he came on, you could see flashes of the fact that he's unbelievably quick, and he's a bit of a nuisance for defenders to try and to thwart up top. But yeah, it was a bit of a shock to see him move on to Luton, because there was a lot of raw potential there, but he never really showed himself to be when he came on, he never scored a goal or really tested the goalkeeper. He was just good at, being that substitute that you bring on when the defense is tiring and he can maybe do something. But it's good to see him, develop, as he has had a really good loan spell at Colchester. And watching the clips of Lincoln v Derby, yeah, he caused Aaron Cashin, who's probably one of the better defenders, or the more highly rated defenders at League One level, all sorts of trouble. So it'll be an interesting reunion between Taylor and Posh on Saturday.
It certainly will, and hopefully one where he can bag a goal against his former club. Obviously, yes, he did run sort of rings around Cashin. Apparently not enough rings around him to stop Cashin getting in the League One Team of the Week, but that's a conversation for another point. Now, Kelan, I always like to kind of ask the guests that come on for a preview kind of what their opinion is of Lincoln. Now, I know that you do a lot of kind of wider EFL sort of writing and podcasting as well. But I guess, first of all, purely from a Peterborough fan point of view, what's the view of Lincoln? And then I guess that little bit wider, how do you see, from an outside point of view, how our season's been going and such?
Yeah, I think from a Peterborough perspective, obviously we've got the rivalries with Cambridge and Northampton, but I'd put Lincoln up there as a bit of a rivalry that matches those. It's always quite a tasty and full-blooded game at Sincil Bank, and usually a good competitive game. But yeah, no, looking from putting my EFL journalist hat on, I think at the moment under Skabala, I thought it was an interesting and left field appointment after Kennedy departed, and you may be going through a bit of a transition at the moment. He's bedding his ideas in, and I think there's green shoots especially from the Derby game and recently to point in the direction that it will come good. Obviously, I think you're on is it 8 matches without a win?
I believe it might be 9, because I think there's the risk that Saturday makes it 10.
Oh, okay. But I think there's enough encouraging signs that it will come good, and I don't think Lincoln are the sort of club that will pull a trigger on Skabala and axe him, but there'd be no point in doing that. It's a long-term appointment, and when you look at Lincoln, they feel like a club that looks to the long term and not the short term. So I think Lincoln are a respected club. They're a club at the moment that look like they're probably going to get mid-table this season, and I don't think you as fans would be that disheartened by that. Am I right?
No. Yeah, no, I'd happily take mid-table. For me at the start, because last season we finished 11th with a 0 goal difference. All I wanted from this season was to get top 10 with a positive goal difference. That was my kind of pre-season aim and hope, but obviously we'll see whether that does happen. Yeah, who knows? Hopefully we can kick on, and hopefully Saturday could be the start of that. Now, Kelan, first of all, tell us how you kind of expect you guys to line up this weekend in terms of shape and maybe some of the players.
Yeah, so I think it's a very settled first 11 now from Fergie. Obviously, we've had the issues with Bila Kapic getting injured against Barnsley, and obviously the heartbreak of Peter Kioso returning to Rotherham. So you probably have Jed Steer in goal and Jadel Katongo, highly rated on loan from Man City at right back. Maybe not as in your face as Peter Kioso is, but a very technically gifted player on the ball. And then, yeah, so it'd probably be a four at the back with Kripianu and Archie Collins as a really, really good midfield duo holding positions. I think there was a worry in the summer getting rid of Jack Taylor, was the more creative player, and Oliver Norburn might have seen our midfield significantly weaken, but Archie and Hector have been standout performers for us. And then there's question marks about Poku's fitness, because he limped off recently, and I think there was a report to say that he'd be out for the majority of January and back at some point in February. So there's question marks over that. But Joel Randall as well is another player that, there might have been at the start of the season some hesitancy to play him in the first team, but he's been really good. And then you'd have Ephron Mason-Clark and Ricky J. Jones are probably set in stone picks, I'd say. So you shouldn't see too much deviation from the standard lineup Fergie picks, but it'll be interesting. Yeah,
certainly will. Definitely something to be looking forward to at 2:00 on Saturday. Now, Kelan, I never let any of the guests on here leave without giving me a score prediction. Go on, try and nail it down. What do you see it happening, it unfolding like?
Yeah, I think a lot of our performances recently, we've picked up quite narrow wins, and when you're riding off the crest of a wave of a positive performance against Derby, there'll be some optimism in the air at Sincilbank. I think I can see it maybe being like a 1-1 or a 1-0 Posh win. I think would be my score prediction, I think.
Well, fair enough. I always like to go optimistic, and I am feeling optimistic after the Derby game, but I also fear that you guys are going to be a tougher opponent than what Derby were. But I also think it's going to have been another week where we've got strikers in this new formation, and it's just going to gel that a little bit more. And we are due a win, and I think we're going to kind of want that. Saturday really sort of revitalize some of the fan base in the sense of it really showed everybody, even those that didn't travel away to Wickham the week before, just what we can do when we've got the opportunity to do so with the players and such all available. So I'm going to go with a 2-0 Lincoln victory. I'm not putting money on it, right? And if I was to put money on it, I would probably go for a draw at best. But yeah. I don't know, just something about the confidence that we're going to get from last Saturday and the fact that the fans are going to be so behind the team considering, and it just feels like this is the weekend, this is the match day where we're going to pick up that great home victory, one of those that is going to stand out at the end of the season as this was a turning point. It was this game. So that's what I'm going to go for. But Kelan, thank you so much for joining me. Guys, make sure to go check out Kelan on all of his socials and such. You'll see, you'll be tagged in the Twitter post, of course, and probably down below in the description. Like I say, thank you so much for joining me. Good luck for the rest of the season, not for Saturday. And I shall speak to you later. Speak to you all later. Thank you so much for watching. Up the end.